A wonderful and big hello and welcome back, Linda. It's so wonderful to see you again.
Well, it's so good to see you again as well, and so fun because we get to reverse roles this time. Because last time I got to interview you, and so I've been excited to for this to come about. I know it took us a little while to get it scheduled, and I'm so excited to be here with you.
But you know what? It did take us a while, and at the same time, it kept us in touch for a while as well.
Yes,
Because
it
we had,
did.
right? We had a talk before I joined your podcast. We were in touch through email in between, and now we come together. And with you, it's so wonderful. Every time I am in touch with you, or like now, when we meet virtually at least, it feels like meeting somebody I already know. And that's
Yes.
great.
I feel the same way, and I'm glad that you said that because it is such a good feeling when you just like it's like two old friends getting back together again.
Yes. And we were just chatting a little bit before I hit the record button about your heritage. So you are somewhat
Yeah.
British as well.
I am. My mother was born in England. Both her parents, are there or were there. They've long since passed. I was looking as I'm working on this process to get my dual citizenship, and it's been fun and interesting all at the same time. Years ago, my grandfather's brother, who never married, never had any family, no children or anything, he passed away. And so, as a result of that, the UK does a pretty extensive search, which I was surprised because I don't think we do that in the US. But in the UK, they do a pretty extensive search to find out he didn't have a big estate or anything, but he had an estate, and they went through their due diligence. And so as a result of that, I also have this amazing family tree, at least on my grandfather's side, of all of my relatives that I didn't know. And it's just kind of funny sometimes to think about the years that they were born in and what they had to have experienced. And so it's been an amazing journey. I'm very excited as I continue on this path.
And as I said to you beforehand, I am excited to meet you hopefully soon in the future, face to face in the
Yes,
UK, in Sweden or Denmark, perhaps as well, where you also have some roots.
absolutely. Yes, I would love that very much. That has been a fun process as well because even looking at my dad's side, he was adopted. And so we really didn't know a lot because, I mean, when he was born in 1934. So, I mean, you didn't have the connection with the internet or anything like that, even as we were growing up. And so he had lost touch with all of that side. Well, recently, because of all of the different ancestry websites and different things, I've had some people who have reached out to me. And as a result of that, I learned a lot about my father's side, which they all predominantly are either out of the UK or Sweden or Denmark. And so, yeah, it's been a fun journey for sure.
The success combo is all I can say. The best
Yes.
from those different worlds, and based in Colorado, I want to
Yes.
add as well, which is a wonderful place to be. And I have said that before on the show, and I mean it. I've had coincidentally quite a few guests from Colorado over the years, and all of them brought something incredibly unique. And with most of them, I'm still in touch as well. So there's something about
Oh,
people from Colorado, that I don't
yeah.
know, attract certainly me into that world.
Well, I think we're just a friendly state. I've always felt that way. Like I've traveled all over the world. And one of the things I always was on this search to figure out like where I was supposed to be and thinking, was Colorado where I was supposed to be? And I think it was, if I couldn't be where my mother was born and really grow up in that side of the world, I think Colorado was a perfect blend. It's interesting that this is where my mom and dad ended up on their journeys, and I love it here. And so I can believe that you're still in touch with people from Colorado. I just think overall you tend to be a little more friendly. So
Yeah, yeah, 100%. Yeah, the people being drawn to nature, being very much environmentally focused and aware as well. connecting differently with themselves and
Yeah.
others is something that truly stuck with me and still sticks with me. So
Absolutely.
very
It's
much aligned.
beautiful here. Yeah,
Yeah.
Colorado's a unique place for sure because you do it. It's such a pretty, pretty place to be. And with the mountains, we don't have the oceans, but that's okay. We have the mountains and the lakes. And, it's just overall, I agree with you. There's just a different feel to Colorado. So,
So you gave us some insights already into your background,
yeah.
heritage, I want to say. You mentioned that you traveled the whole world basically, and that led me to a question around identity and what shapes your identity and what identity actually means to you. So I'm going to start with a very big question.
Yes,
Yeah,
yes.
what has shaped your identity? And the second part of it, what does it mean to you?
That's a really hard question, Kathleen. But I'm glad that you asked it because it has been interesting. I think growing up, particularly having a father who was adopted, and so we had no connection to his roots at all, was interesting because so I didn't grow up with with grandparents or aunts and uncles and cousins. I didn't have any of that around me because we didn't know anything on my dad's side of the family, and then on my mother's side, they were all in the UK, and we were very much blue collar. So my dad didn't fly after he got out of the military; he wouldn't get on an airplane. But my mom, they couldn't afford to fly back to the UK, so I went one time when I was maybe, I think like maybe 5 years old. I remember going home with my mom. And that was the only time I ever met my grandmother as well. And then after that, I did have a few of my mom's sisters who would travel here and we got to spend a little bit of time. But it was interesting because everything was really very much wrapped up then around my mom and my dad. And I had my brother passed away a few years ago, but I have my brother and then my sister. And so everything was really this very tiny, world, if you will. And even growing up, what we knew was what was around us. The world is so much bigger today. So, I mentioned to you, I'm old enough that I was pre-internet. And so we didn't have all of the cell phones and all of that when I was growing up. And so it was definitely a different time for sure. And so as I watched like what shaped who I was, what I saw were two parents who were very hardworking parents. Like my mom and dad both were, I mentioned blue collar. My dad had maybe an eighth grade education before he ended up, he joined the military young. I think he was 17. I'm sure he lied about his age to get into the military. And so he joined that very young, didn't have that strong education background. My mother, the education system was different in the UK as well. And so my mom's education kind of stopped at, I guess, here it would be probably maybe junior high school, probably. So, but two of the smartest people I knew and two of the hardest working. So my dad did mechanic and HVAC and eventually was a truck driver. My mother went into healthcare. So she was a CNA. She did all of a lot of the healthcare work around that. When she transitioned out of being a CNA, she went to work with her friend who was German, who had immigrated here from Germany, and they did hospice work together. So my mom always kind of found herself in that place there. But because of that, I also, my world stayed very small growing up. Like, my parents were very protective and very much around, keeping you grounded where you were. You worked hard, you kept your nose down. And as a result of that, things would happen. As I've gotten older, and it's probably taken me probably now and just until the last, maybe 10 years that I really realized that while that was wonderful, advice, perhaps, it really wasn't taking me anywhere, right? So when I think about my career and my focus, I was definitely that person who worked really hard, very reliable, very focused, thought, if I kept my nose down, I did a good job, people would notice me and you'd get that promotion, you'd get more money. And that's not really how the world works, right? And so as a result of that, my whole identity got wrapped up in this idea that, I just had to be, I just did my podcast on this, on being the reliable one. Like I was that person that everyone could count on. But maybe I couldn't count on myself at all because I didn't even know who I was. And like I said, it's only been maybe like the last 10 years that I've been on this search to figure out like, who is Linda Misegadis? Because my whole world has been my job or my kids or my husband. It's always been about everyone else. It's never really been about me. So what do you do with that when you get to this stage in your life?
So fascinating. I was nodding away because I can resonate with so much you were saying. I remember, and I'm pretty sure I've shared that on the show as well before, but I remember when I moved to the UK, it was 2010. I started to really discover myself, that version of me in those years, I
Yeah.
have to say now. And I remember a few years in, every time I flew back to the UK, I sat on the plane and I saw London just beneath me. I was like, oh my God, this is home and this is you. And you let go of these expectations that I was carrying for years and years since my
Yeah.
childhood, similar to what you said, right? Be the reliable one, be the good girl,
Yes.
work hard, all of those
Yes.
phrases that were on my mind for sure. Um, but I've also come to realize, and that's recent, I think that work, uh, I don't want to say finished because it's never finished, but came to an initial conclusion last year when I thought, oh, okay, identity just shifts on a regular basis.
Yeah.
You don't turn into another person, but you go through phases that
Yes.
just shape a little bit more who you are and how you are evolving. And I came to learn that this can be quite enjoyable. It's a bit like Indiana Jones with yourself.
Yes. That is so true. I like that you said that because it is kind of fun. Like I don't look back and go, gosh, I wish I would have done everything different in my life, right? Because you don't get to where you are if and maybe it would have been a whole different path and maybe it would have been a terrible path. And so I don't look back and go, I should have done this, I should have done that. You can't live in woulda, coulda, shoulda because it doesn't really matter. So everything that happened shaped who I am today. But exactly to your point, like the person I am today is not the same person that I was when I was 20 or 30 years old. But I like what you said there was that my identity has shifted. It's not so much that at my core, I'm a completely different person because I am who I am, but my identity, my maybe who what your roles and responsibilities are from when you start out, because I was a young mom. I started out as a young mother as well, and so a lot of my identity was wrapped up in being a mom and working, and so it's like how that shifts and evolves, and as your kids grow up and as your marriage evolves, and then when watching my parents pass away and the change that that has as well, because all of a sudden you're like, I'm an orphan, I'm both my parents are gone. It's like I don't have that tie anymore, and it's different, but it's been a fun journey along the way. Not everything has been fun, but I mean when I look back, it's definitely been a journey for sure.
So who's Linda now?
Gosh, that's a great one because when before the show, you and I were talking a little bit about this. I think that's where I'm at. I'm kind of at this place where I'm trying to figure out. I'm too young to retire entirely, and so that's why it's been fun to go on this journey of dual citizenship as well. There's lots of reasons why we're thinking about it without being political, but we're thinking about that transition for many reasons. But the other side of it as well is as I'm looking at where I am with my job and my career, like what do I really want to do? And honestly, what has been so much fun is doing the podcasting. And so I started my own podcast a couple of years ago now, and it has been so fun because I've gotten to meet so many incredible people like yourself through this process. But it's also given me like lots of different ideas about, where do I take this? So I'm kind of in this gap planning where not totally ready to jump out of corporate America, but I'm getting closer and closer. And honestly, I never thought I'd get there. I was like, oh, I'll be that person who wants to work till she's, 70 years old doing the same stuff. And I'm not. I'm not that person. I've discovered that has shifted as well. And what I want to spend my time doing. So I'm in this right now, this kind of introspective, reflective time to figure out where do I want to take all these years of wonderful experience and relationships and knowledge that I've gained, and where do I want to go with that? So
Mm.
that's where I'm kind of at right now.
And how does that feel? Because quite a few individuals I work with in the corporate world, and we are both corporate animals, if I can call
Yes.
us that, are
Yes.
incredibly nervous about stepping out of that world. Understandably, by the way.
Yes.
So how is that space you are in for you?
It is very scary because one of the things that I've talked about throughout the years is that a lot of times the advice that we get is, if we're not happy in our jobs, leave corporate America, or if we're not happy in corporate America, to just leap out and start your own business. Well, you have your own business. That's not an easy thing to do. It takes a lot of planning and preparation, and it's very scary to make that leap. For someone like me, I'm very, and it probably has a lot to do with my identity and what I'm grounded in, is I'm very comfortable being in the world of corporate America. So it's not necessarily that I'm like, oh, I just want to throw out corporate America. But in the meantime, there's a lot of change happening across the world today in corporate America. And some of that is driven by the technology. We're seeing a lot that's going on with AI, and I work in the tech space. And so a lot of my friends and colleagues are feeling very scared and uncertain. We've seen massive layoffs that are happening because companies are investing a lot of money into AI. And so in order to invest in that, they're reducing their headcount, which has a kind of a twofold effect, because it's having an impact on those people who are still working, because now the expectation of doing more with less is even greater. And this idea that somehow AI is fixing everything for us. And so we'll do more with less with AI, and that's going to solve all of your problems. And then you've got the other side where a lot of people have lost their jobs. Well, what are they going to do? And that's been a lot of like where I'm scratching my head a little bit of like, if we're creating the future of work, who are we creating the future of work for? Because it feels like we're forgetting about the human side of work along the way. So it's a weird time, I think, for everyone, because we are going through so many shifts, and it is having a huge impact. And so it does leave you feeling a little bit like a lot of my friends as well are scared to leave, even if they want to. Maybe they're even unhappy in their positions. They're afraid to go because if you leave, what happens, and where do you take that? The gig economy is being impacted by AI as well. So, it's a weird time right now. So I think that everyone is kind of in this um, feeling of uncertainty. Like, what do we do? What are we supposed to do? How do we plan? And in the past, I think we'd look to corporations and even our government leaders to help along those lines. And right now, they're not there. I mean, we're really kind of on our own out here figuring things out, and it's weird.
Yeah. And at the same time, I had a conversation about that with friends at the weekend. At the same time, it makes the likes of me, and I know I'm different to others, and others are different to me, gives me a sort of push, right?
Yeah, yeah,
Something that really pushes my button is
yeah,
when people complain about how bad everything is, but with the sentiment of blaming everybody else around them.
My goodness,
And
yes.
it really, really pushes my button. Because you can complain about politicians as much as you want and everybody else, but in the end, it's about reflection and thinking about what is it I can do? How can I shift
Yeah.
my situation? Knowing that some people experience some tremendous hardship and it's far easier said than done. So that's why I'm
Yes.
saying shift some small changes. Going back to school, educating myself around AI or
Yes.
technology, whatever it is. But I believe anybody can take a step. Um, and when you are now in the economy that you described, you have a choice, right? You wait and see
Yes.
until it's your
Yes.
turn to leave or to be kicked out, or you rethink your strategy.
Yes.
And that's what I mean with it gives us a certain push. And I know I'm
It does.
overgeneralizing, and yet I'm true believer in create your own destiny.
Yes.
So therefore, I'm quite excited is the wrong term because there's too much crap going on in the world around us at the
Right.
moment.
Yeah. Yes. Yes.
In all fairness, but I see it as an opportunity too.
I'm glad you said that, and I totally agree with you. I don't like the blame game. I watched my parents live a very challenging. I mean, my mom was 18 years old when she came to this country, maybe 19 years old when she came to this country. My dad was stationed in another country. So it's like here she came, she had no family, no anything. And I watched my mom always make it work, no matter what the situation was. When they had financial hardships, I remember when they bought their home, my dad had lost his job right after they bought their house. And my mom was like, it was the only house they ever owned, that they ever lived in. But my mom always figured out how to make it work. Together they found a path forward. And exactly to your point, they could have blamed everyone else, but the truth is, they figured out a way to do that. And I feel the same way. And I'm with you. I don't like making the excuse. And it's not like I don't look to my corporate America world it's not their job to figure out what my next step is or what my next role is. So to your point, I take full advantage of all of the things that they offer to me as well, right? So we have an amazing training program that they offer up to us through LinkedIn Learning and different ways that we can take that. I take full advantage of that because I don't want somebody, you never know what's going to happen. So I love to build up my skills. When I started the podcast, that was, a way to expand and kind of start to create a separate identity from my corporate identity. Like, what was this one over here? So I completely agree with you, Kathleen. I'm not a fan of that blame game either. I do think we set our own destiny. And to your point, I don't want to be overly generalized because there are a lot of people who are in very difficult situations, and sometimes that's easier said than done. But for most of us, we are in control of our own destiny if we choose to be, right? And I think that that's the important part of all of that is we do have choices.
And you seem to me like a person who follows her gut quite a bit, who is quite intuitive. So starting the podcast, reshaping the podcast as well. Now being in this gap where you're like, what's coming next? And there is no clarity yet. And that is, it seems at least okay to be in that space. So how would you describe those moments when you notice for yourself, something might need to shift? I'm using this word frequently here with you today. And this is what I'm going to do.
Yeah, I think what I try to do is a big part of this whole journey that I've been on over, especially as I mentioned, over like the last 10 years, is this self-awareness. And so identifying like, what is it that's really bothering me? Because what I would find a lot of times is that I'd be bothered by something. I'm like, what is bothering me and why is it bothering me? And so really kind of getting into it. So even like when things bother me at work, I do that where to your point, what do I need to shift? So if I can't change the situation, what can I do to find a path forward in that same situation? So I'm a problem solver by nature, good or bad. And so I think, okay, well, if this doesn't work, then what if I did this? Could I shift just slightly to go another direction and really find a different path? And so a lot of it has been about self-awareness. Some of it also has been about being more present, because that's the other thing is that I found for many years, I was just like, go, 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 fly by the seat of my pants, whatever came along. I just, again, always could follow my gut and figure out a way. But now I'm stopping and I'm pausing for a second and going, okay, what's not going on here? What do I need to shift here? Is this working for me? Maybe it is, maybe it isn't. What can I do to change? And I've really been kind of leaning into to all the amazing people out there like yourself and the others that I get to talk to. There is so many great ideas and little bits of wisdom. And I think before, when I would listen to things, I'd be like, well, I can't relate to that person. Well, I don't have to relate with your story, but I can take what is in your story and find little nuggets and little things that I can say, ooh, I'm going to take what Kathleen said there because I can apply that in what's going on with mine. So I've kind of tried to change my perspective a little bit, because I think that's what was really, really holding me back, was my perspective.
And again, I can relate to that as well. And I'm going to transfer that into the world of work, where networks and bringing in people who expand your perspective, who are not necessarily right around you all the time, can be such a tremendously support. Just, triggering this little piece of thought that might take you forward or in a different direction.
Yes.
And I find that incredibly important. And coming back to AI and technology, as useful as I find it, that's something I think society has got to focus more on, those proper connection points again, where you are more deliberate
Yes.
and intentional, and, to use your word, present with the people that you encounter and that you meet. Because who knows what new insights and very simply a sense of belonging you might gain from it.
It's so true. A big transition point for me, weirdly enough, was COVID. And the reason why COVID was a transition point for me is that I'm very introverted, have been my whole life. But I allowed people saying, oh, well, you're an introvert, to hold me back. So, oh, well, you're an introvert, so that's why you don't do this. And I would accept that and be like, you know what, you're right. The reason why I don't network is because I'm introverted. And I would rather go back to my hotel room instead of going down to the social because I'm an introvert. So I allowed that to be an excuse for myself, but I also allowed other people to kind of put that on me to say, well, Linda's introverted, and so that's why she doesn't do this. Well, COVID kind of changed that a bit for me, because all of the sudden we had to be in this video environment, right? Because we weren't traveling as much. And so all of a sudden I found myself having to get very comfortable with this idea that we were sitting here face to face, looking at one another, talking to one another, getting comfortable on the camera, and being okay with that. So not worrying about the insecurity, like, well, do I look okay? Does my hair look okay? Did my makeup look okay? Whatever it was that I was worried about in that appearance side of it, and starting to recognize that that wasn't what was important anyway. It was the human connection that was being made in that moment. Because what I also came to realize is that no one cared what I looked like or my appearance from that perspective. And we did start to see things relax, because there were things that also used to make me crazy. Like if you would see my boss, his cat walks across his desk all the time on camera. And I'm thinking, how, early, that is so unprofessional. You need to get that cat out of there. Or you'd see somebody's child come around and you'd be like, oh my gosh, because I remember when I was coming up, like we pretended we didn't have children because we couldn't be moms at work, right? So,
Yeah.
so you'd never let your child into the frame. And so as that started to relax and we started to get more comfortable, I also started to get more comfortable. So then when it opened back up to where we weren't in the COVID world anymore and we started to get back out there, I used that new information I learned through being forced to be in these situations in now real life situations, right? So I learned how to small talk and how to come up and introduce myself and not be uncomfortable. And what I realized is that it's not that I didn't like networking or that I wasn't capable of doing it. It's just no one ever taught me how to network. And so then it was easier to just kind of fall back into that excuse of, well, I'm introverted. And so I'm just going to slip away, and not talk to anyone. So that's been the other thing too, is what are we like holding ourselves back with because no one taught us those skills versus what are we really not capable of doing? Because honestly, there isn't anything we're not capable of doing if we really want to do it. So
And may I add, there were other people who um, told you what a part of your identity was. So because
yes,
you are introverted, that's why you are not mingling. You are getting in your own
yes,
way. And
yeah,
the weird thing is, at a certain point in life, we believe that stuff. You know? And for anybody who is familiar with Myers-Briggs or just reads a lot about introversion, extroversion, everything in between nowadays,
yes,
we know it's all about where you take your energy from, not that you, as you rightly so said, you are
yes,
incapable of networking. It's just it takes a ton
yes,
of energy away. So you need recovery
it
time
does.
in between, all right? You might need to
Yeah.
learn it, but we all can do it.
We definitely can do it. And I found that I'm actually quite good at it, and which opened me up to then being able to do my podcasting, right?
Yes.
Because I would have never done a podcast. I would have thought, oh my goodness, I can't do a podcast. I'm introverted. And so I can't possibly do those sorts of things. And you're absolutely right. I allowed so much of other people to determine that that was my identity. And as a result of it, like I was holding myself back in my career and my life and all the things. And to your other point, like now I do have to go and decompress a little bit. So like I do need some time to recover after that. It takes a lot out of me, but it's not that I can't do it. I just need to go through a process afterwards, so that I'm ready for the next time that I have to be out there and be in front of other people. So it's fascinating how much we allow the opinions and thoughts of other people to limit our what we think we can do or what we're supposed to be doing. So,
Yes. And speaking about being introverted, how has that helped you throughout your career and life overall?
one of the things that I think that it really helped me with, and I think it's actually helped me to hone in on a skill that I think that I'm pretty good at, is being able to clear out all the white noise and get to the heart of the problem. And so being introverted and kind of falling into that idea that I wasn't the person who was out front, standing back and observing. So I spent a lot of my life watching what was going on around me from, in my childhood and my young adult and even in my early, kind of before I grew into myself, I guess, a little bit, sitting back and watching and observing. And as a result of that, I also started to be able to quickly identify where a problem was. And so I could look at a situation, I could remove all of that white noise around it and say, well, here's what we need to do. And here's how we need to approach that. And I think as a result of that, and because I really only spoke up when I thought I had something important to say, people did have a tendency to maybe listen to when I said something because they're like, wow, Linda never says anything. And so now here she's bringing something forward. But I think that power of observation really helped me. And I don't think I would have had that if I'd have just been out there, necessarily thinking that I had all the answers already figured out. I really took a lot of time to just watch. And even today, I like to observe people. Like people are fascinating. Human nature is really fascinating to me. And as a result of that, I think, you start to learn, you see behaviors, you see patterns, and it actually helps you even in business. So I think I can pick up on things that maybe somebody else misses because I spent so many years just watching.
Collecting data and putting the patterns together.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. I think it was really helpful for that. And I probably missed out on some things along the way. I look back from a social perspective. Maybe there were some things that I missed, but all in all, I mean, I don't really think it. Once I realized that it didn't have to hold me back, and it was something that I could actually use to my advantage, I think I started to embrace it and recognize that was a part of who I was. How could I then apply that in what I was doing?
And I have to say, um, every time I speak to you, I feel so calm. And that's what loads of introverts, and I know there are nuances amongst introverts as well.
Yes.
That's the impact a lot of my more introverted friends, for example, have on me. I'm like, oh, is that just wonderful to be around them?
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I have heard that before. And actually, I think that was something else that maybe helped me, even from a leadership perspective, is
Mhm.
because in crazy situations, on the inside, I might be like everything might be firing off. But on the outside, I maintain my composure and that calmness about it. And I think as a result, that helped in escalated situations, maybe de escalating. And it helps me honestly in conversations with customers who might be upset or frustrated. It's like being able to just bring it down. Nothing is there's nothing we can't figure out. And so I do think that has helped, having that calming approach to things. That even if on the inside I'm going crazy, on the outside everybody else feels like okay, it's all good.
And I'm pretty sure you get that feedback from time to time as well, that you have this
Me
effect
too.
on
Yeah.
people. Yeah.
I have heard that. Yeah, I always find it interesting because my husband would probably not agree with that at all.
Well, that's a different story. Home is a
That's
different
right.
story.
That's it.
You entered the workforce at a young age,
I did.
and I was wondering, when was the first time that you realized you were leading without necessarily having a title of being a leader?
That's really a great question. Because I did jump into the work world very young and very early. Honestly, it was one of my very first jobs that I had. I was like maybe 15 or 16 years old and had been put into a leadership role with people who were quite a bit older than I was. But the approach that I took there and what I was doing, I didn't even realize that I didn't even necessarily understand why I was in that leadership role per se, because yes, I could do the job, but why did they put me in that? And I think that it was the connection that I made with the people, and that they didn't take that as a negative, that here was this young person. And I think it was because I was a problem solver. And I think that's when I started to realize, like, oh, okay, I do have the ability to lead. But I never carried it like that. I don't think that I've ever in through all my leadership roles or anything I've ever had, I've never focused in on it from that lens. It's always just about what can we do collectively to move the problem forward or to solve what needs to be solved. And I think that's it. But I think it was at a young age, and I think it was just problem solving, perhaps, like being able to see something and go, I think we could do that different, or we could do that better.
What was your first role?
So my very first job was actually working for a company called Aramark, who handled all of the concessions and the novelties for like all the sports teams and the concerts and that. And so I worked for them, and actually worked doing running the novelty shops, and during other events I might run a food cart or something like that. And so that's what I spent my first real job doing. Prior to that, we all did the babysitting experience, but that was my first real job, was working for Aramark. And I learned so much during that time, and I think that was a fun time for sure too.
So it sounds fun and challenging. Um,
Yes.
and given that you are a problem solver, when was the first time you were faced with the problem of, what do I really want to do? And how did you find
Oh,
it?
you know what? That one is really a great question as well, because for me, I was just talking about this the other day, that I think that because I was that hard worker, nose down, just kind of following along this path that other people were guiding me along. And thank goodness I did have some good mentors and advisors along the way, although I didn't realize that at the time. And so I started to, shift into the world of finance and accounting. And then I got into payroll, and I kind of got in this area of running payroll departments. But about, it's been almost probably 16 or 17 years ago when I all of a sudden I was like, I don't know if this is really what I want to do, or was this ever what I was supposed to do? Like, that wasn't my big dream job. And so the company I work for now, I actually approached the VP of sales then, and they had sold their solution to the organization I was working for. I was actually head of the payroll operations for the city and county of Denver. And I went to them and said, I don't think you really know what you're doing in public sector. Would you be open to a conversation? And I spent, I don't know, an hour or two talking through, and I thought that would be the extent of it, right? That he even granted me this audience for me to tell him how I didn't think that they knew what they were doing. And that ended up turning into him inviting me to present to all of his sales organization about how they needed to properly sell into the government entities. And that ended up turning into a job offer that has been, I'll say, in all of my years of working, has been one of the most fulfilling careers that I've had, because I've been able to turn this role into so many different things through problem solving. So identifying where we have a gap and filling it, and identifying a problem and fixing it. And completely outside of anything I spent the first, majority of my career doing. I never worked in sales or supporting a sales organization. And here all of a sudden I found myself in this role. And when he hired me, he said, I have no idea what this job is going to be, Linda. He's like, but I know I want you here. And it was funny, a few years ago, he left and I had a new VP, and that VP brought our old VP back when we were at a meeting, and he said, one of the best hires I ever made was Linda. And he said, I had no idea why I was hiring her, but I'm glad I did. And that just really made me feel really good. But it wasn't until then, and I mean, it wasn't much later my life, when I took control of my own career path and where I was going, to make this decision to do something that was completely outside of my comfort zone.
And man, was that brilliantly audacious what you did there. Let me just
That's what
tell you how everything is not working that your department is
that
doing.
was it. Yes, yes. My husband, he's like, I don't think you ever told me how you ended up in this. He's like, I don't even know who you are. And he's like, that's not my wife. And I said, I know, I don't know what happened or what came over me, but I was just like, you know what? What's the worst that could happen? Right. And he could tell me, thanks, but no thanks. But he didn't. And as a result, it has definitely turned into one of the best experiences of my career.
Amazing. Audacious, open, bold in this moment, facing just the truth, giving some open feedback, all with the intention of improving things. Um,
Yes.
and
Yeah.
no intention to land a job in this moment, but here you are. And I think that's a
That's
lesson in
it.
itself.
Yeah. No, and sometimes that's it. Sometimes just recognizing and saying something, we use that for different reasons. We say, if you see something, say something, but it's true in life as well. Sometimes if you see something, say something, because it could open up an opportunity for you. And I think women, we sometimes have a tendency to not do that. Or we quietly fix it behind the scenes where nobody really realizes what we're doing. I mean, I would encourage, so many women are excellent problem solvers. And, when you see something, speak up, say something. What's the worst that's going to happen, right? I mean,
Well, let's stick with problem solving here, because a thought that's been on my mind now since you've mentioned problem solving for the first time
yeah,
was the what can I say, the risk of being the problem solver. And we're going to
yes,
talk about the opportunities in a moment as well. But I've actually spoken to a male leader the other day, and he calls himself the problem solver as well. And he feels fulfilled when he was able to solve problems. Reality is, he takes on issues that are not his nonstop and is completely run down at the moment.
Yeah.
And he can't do the same as he can do at home when he is about to step in again and solve problems for others. And his wife stands next to him and says, "No, you won't,"
Yes.
because he doesn't have her at work. And it wouldn't be healthy,
Yes.
probably, as well. So that was a long segue into the actual question around what challenges have you experienced by being the problem solver, enjoying it as well, and stepping into that space regularly. And may I say, you grew up with problem solving as well.
Yes, yes, yes. It and I think that's maybe kind of what also forced me to take a look at all of this because I until they started using the term burnout, I had no idea what burnout actually was. And so, but it's something obviously that's been around for a long time, but very similar. The challenge I think with that is that I do that all the time where I look at problems that maybe aren't even really mine to solve, right? And or it might even be in another department, and I do this all the time. It because it might impact what we do here, and so I'll say, oh well, let me go fix that for them, and then that'll make things better over here. And as a result of that, I think that it's a couple things. Is one, it does start to stretch you too thin, and it does really start to take a mental toll on you. The fatigue is real because sometimes, especially when it's not your area, you also don't have the authority to fix it. And so what you're trying to do is problem solve around, and that is really challenging sometimes if you don't have either the authority or the buy-in to make those changes happen. And so it starts to take a mental fatigue on you, I think, after a while, and you do have a tendency to then take on everything. So I have found this now where I'm trying to do better even in our leadership meetings because my boss calls me the Swiss Army knife. And on one hand, that's a compliment. But on the other hand, it's like, yeah, but the problem with being everything to everyone is you have no time for anything for yourself either. And so it also muddies the water as far as like, what is your career path? Fortunately for someone like me who enjoys doing something different all the time. And so I can make those shifts frequently throughout my day. Like one minute I'm working on this and the next minute I'm not. That doesn't work well for everyone. And I'm starting to notice as well, it's starting to take a toll on me as well. It's hard to constantly be in that zigzag mode of trying to fix all of these different things. And then always in those meetings, I know that everybody's looking for me to raise my hand because I almost always do. And now I'm starting to figure out maybe I don't need to raise my hand, let somebody else fix that problem. It's not mine to fix. But it's hard to do too, because when you opened this with identity, when your identity has kind of been wrapped around this notion that you're the one who always steps up, you're the one who will fix it, it's then you're kind of like you've built this expectation now. And so now how do you step out of that and start saying no without feeling like you're letting everybody else down? And that's where I found myself probably over just maybe the last couple of years, because I think, maybe it's age catches up with you and you start like you don't have the energy you had when you were younger either to just kind of take it all on. But it takes its toll for sure.
Yeah, I can only imagine. And if you add to it overstimulation, non-stop availability, right? Messages
Yes,
pinging in left, right, and center. I also think it's not just age. I think it's just the stimulus around us that
that's a
plays a
good
huge role
point.
here as well.
Yes. Yeah,
Constant
that's very
context
true.
switching, right? Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, because now because we are in this age of constant connection, I will have somebody sending me a text message on my phone. I've got emails. I've got instant messaging. You've got Teams coming through. So yes, it is. It's a constant stimulus, and learning how to shut that off, which is also something I never really learned how to do. I was in a constant state of availability. And so again, and I can't blame anybody for that except for myself. Like I can't be mad at my boss or my colleagues or my friends or my family because I created that expectation that I was that person. And so everybody kind of relies on you in that situation because you've set that expectation. And so now how do you change it? How do you shift away from that expectation? It's hard to do. It's not easy. And sometimes you feel like you're letting yourself down too. You're like, oh, well, I'm not that person anymore. I'm like, I can't do it anymore. So you start to beat yourself up a little bit along the way too.
So we introduce and stick to certain habits because they offer us a reward, right?
Yes,
So being available all the time offers us a reward.
it does.
What was your reward?
I think for me, it was that feeling like, there's Linda. She always takes care of it. I know I can always get a hold of Linda. I answer if you send me a message. Within moments, I'm responding to that message. And so my reward, like I kind of created that Pavlov dog sound, kind of like the bell ringing type of thing. If I heard a ding for mine, I immediately did. And my reward in that was this belief that somehow I was the hero of the moment, right? So I could create this thing for me that it was like it made me feel good. I'm not someone who needs a big public display of, ticker tape parade or anything like that. But it's that idea that everybody's like, oh, well, there's Linda. Linda'll take care of it. I said the old Mikey commercial with the cereal for life. They'd say, let's get Mikey. Mikey'll do it. He'll do anything. And I'm like, that was Linda, right? It's like, oh, we'll just get Linda. Linda will do it. She always takes care of it. So, and I had this satisfaction that somehow that was fulfilling me. So
Yeah. That's a topic I think and speak about more and more as well, for various reasons, going through a similar journey and
yeah,
seeing it in many others as well, in particular women. And
yes,
in particular, when talking about leadership identity, the question I often discuss with some of the female leaders I support is, how do you want to be perceived as a leader? And it's never
yes,
black and white, right? It's not about being
mm-mm,
the helpful person or not being the helpful person. But do you want to be perceived predominantly as the person who's always there when a problem needs to be solved, who we can rely
right,
on? Let's wait for her to raise the hand and to speak up. Or do you want to be perceived in a more nuanced way, which I'm sure you are, the challenger, the strategist, the person who
yes,
can let go and delegate, empowering others? There's so much more. And then what you added is the word burnout. In particular,
hmm,
many female leaders carrying so many different roles in their lives are prone to fall into a burnout state more quickly because the mental load is still there and we have it inside of us that I need to help out and I need to take care and
yes,
help and support. Um, and it's really important, speaking about awareness, that you highlighted early on so beautifully, to step back and to truly think about, what's my leadership identity here? What do I want to
yeah,
be known for? What is good for me? What feels authentic for me? And I work at my best as well, right?
yes,
And if it's
yes.
being
That
the
is so true.
helper, fine, cool. But
Yeah,
think about it.
yeah. That is well, and I think that's a really good point, Kathleen, because it is what you have to decide, like who and what do you want to be thought of in those scenarios, and the other thing too that I've learned along the way is that because I was the one to always step up, maybe I was taking opportunities away from other people, or even in my own team when I would come in, like I remember. Years ago, I was working for a company. I did a lot of mergers and acquisitions, and we had brought on a new company. Instead of me working and putting the delegation to my team and really empowering them, I just did everything. I just stepped in. I worked until 2, 3 o'clock in the morning. I remember our CEO calling me from the parking lot saying, "Linda, really, you should go home." He's like, "You're the only one here." And, but again, I wore that as his badge of honor a little bit too, but also the belief that I was the only one who could solve the problem. And what I've learned as I've matured and kind of looked at all of this is that there are lots of different ways to solve problems, and mine is one of those ways. It may not be the only way, and it may not even be the best way. And that if you're going to be in a leadership role, you have to allow the people that are following you to learn along the way too, which also means they have to make mistakes and they have to, you know, find their own path, and they have to find a way. So some of the things I started to shift, and I know a lot of leaders do this too, is I would tell my team, like, don't just bring me the problem. I need you to bring me the problem and what you're going to do to solve it. Because otherwise, I would just fix it. But if they come to me with solutions, then I'm like, and I've really, really had to work at this because it's not easy for me to do, is to have them walk me through that solution and then trust them to go and do it, even when I don't always think that that's the best solution, because maybe it will be the best solution. I just don't know that. And so having enough faith in the people that are following you, because I think that's a big part of it, right? And in leadership, it's not about being the one who knows all the answers and who can get everything done. It's really about empowering the people around you and surrounding yourself with really smart, capable people, and then giving them the opportunity to grow in their leadership as well. So,
Yeah, 100%. And with regards to problem solving, I wonder, when was a moment for you when you observed somebody solving a problem and you were like, man, I could have never come up with that. That was a real learning moment for you.
I have had several of those, honestly, and especially over the last few years. There's a person on my team who I was just like, wow, I would have never thought of taking that approach. And it was a learning opportunity for me too, to take a step back and go, see, other people can solve problems too, and maybe they can solve them better as well. But it was also a proud moment as well, because I'm like, I like to empower the people who I get to work with to do that now. It's a lesson I had to learn along the way because I wasn't always that type of a leader. And I think now it's really like empowering them, but that they know that if they go out there and they do it, which is what happened in this situation, they knew that I was going to support them. Even if it fell short, right? I wasn't going to just leave them out there. And that is such a good feeling as well, is knowing that you've got that support behind you, because it further empowers people to maybe step out and do something that they wouldn't have normally done. So it was good. It was a good feeling all around for sure.
Which so beautifully leads me back to the rewards. In particular, rewards with regards to being available, being the one to rely on, right? That you spoke about earlier on. The reward you mentioned was, oh, I'm Linda. I'm the one, who solves it, who's there,
Yes.
who sorts it out. Is that real change started to happen for you in the last couple of years, and it isn't easy. So
No.
if people come to you and want you to fix something, you have to step back from time to time, right? And not be the one who grabs the
Yes.
phone right away and says, let me deal with it.
Yes.
How has your reward shifted? Because the reward needs to be replaced.
It does need to be replaced. You're absolutely right. I still need I still need that. I think what it is now is the pride I feel in the team, right? So now it's like, oh, look at what Sean did. He's so, or when people come to me and say, gosh, Linda, Holly is doing such an amazing job. And I'm like, yeah, she is. And that feels good to me as well, because it's not that I'm taking credit for their work because they stand on their own merit, but they're on my team and they're solving these problems and we're doing these things. And people are recognizing the amazing stuff that they're doing. That's the new reward, is to hear that. It's like, gosh, I don't know what we do without your team. I don't know what we would do if Holly didn't take care of this for us, or Sean has done such a great job, or Lou made all the difference in the world. Those are things, those are like, they're almost like proud mom moments, like when you hear good things about your kids and you're like, yes, that's right, those are my children. You kind of have a little bit of that kind of proud mom moment as well with when you hear that from the team. And that's the new reward. So it doesn't have to be about me solving the problem. It's more about, look at what these guys are doing. And I hope I played a small part in their confidence to be able to step out there and do those things.
Yeah. Admittedly, in my personal life, I'm still looking for good replacements for those rewards. Um, let's,
Personal is always so much harder, Kathleen. Honestly, I think that's why I rooted my identity so much in my public, or in my professional life, because man, living real life is way harder sometimes than living the professional life.
it is. It's really challenging, in particular, this letting go and not being the one who's always solving the problem right away
Yes.
and fixes things. And every time I just, stood there and I didn't step in and I just let things unfold, I'm like, I don't feel quite the same satisfaction, I have to say.
I felt the same way. I know exactly what you mean. I'm trying to follow the Mel Robbins theory of let
Oh.
them, but man, it is a struggle. I agree with you. And even when I'm like, okay, take that step back, I'm with you. I don't feel that same sense of satisfaction. And also, I have a harder time waiting for someone else to fix it. I'm like, this I'll just do myself. So,
Yeah.
so yeah, it is way harder. Personal life is. I have not found that yet either. I haven't figured that one out.
Well, let us learn from you. Because I'm pretty sure there are quite a few listeners who say, so how does she solve problems, in particular complex problems? And you talked about gap. You talked about being in a space where you are happy to context switch, not quite as much anymore as you used to, but still where you can step into different spaces where there is ambiguity and still you solve the problem. So what's your approach to problem solving? And I say it again, in particular in complexity.
A lot of what I do is listen first. I think that's so important. And that's, I think, a skill we can all continue to improve on, is not listening with the intent to respond, but listening to hear what's being said. And so what I definitely make sure of is I gather all of the information, and not an analysis paralysis, because I think that's also why a lot of times problem solving, you don't end up doing a good job at it, because if you spend too much time in the world of analysis, then you never solve the problem, because you're never going to be able to analyze enough data to make you feel comfortable. And then some of it is a little bit of feeling comfortable with taking some risk. I mean, I've definitely thrown caution to the wind sometimes when we've been problem solving, and it's a little bit of a wing and a prayer and hope that it works, but it's usually rooted in an educated guess as to, I think this is going to work. But a big part of it is really hearing what people are saying, but really hearing it, because when people bring things to you, a lot of times it's like, that old saying is, I don't need you to tell me how to build the watch. Just tell me what time it is. That's the kind of person I've always been. I'm like, I don't need all of that white noise. I just need to hone in on this. And when I can kind of pick like the 2 or 3 things that I know are actually the real problem, then I can say, okay, now I know how we're going to solve that, because it's kind of like you just pull away all of that extra emotional baggage that comes sometimes when people are bringing things to you. So kind of hone in on and listen for those things that are like, there's usually 2 or 3 key things in any situation where like, okay, that's what the real problem is. So let's now attack that, and also remove the people from it. It's never about the person that is the problem either. It's a process. Maybe it's the tool. It's something else. It's rarely like at its heart the people, because I think when you start to get the people, then you start pulling personality into it and all of that. And that's not where that may be part of the problem, but generally that not isn't the problem. So it's like, let's figure that piece of it out, but hone in on what's really causing that issue.
Lovely what you say about remove the person from it. You expressed it in a different way that I was thinking you would say. Remove the person from it was for me about removing too many chefs in the kitchen, basically, in the
Yeah, yes.
decision, in the problem solving process, which is a decision making process quite often as well. And I was wondering how you go about that, to push back and to
Yeah.
keep the group tight.
Yes, that's a good one too, because I like consensus to a certain degree, but I don't believe in consensus leadership. I just think someone has to make a decision, right? And so when you find yourself too much it's good to hear all the different thoughts and opinions, but at the end of the day, if you're the leader, they're counting on you to make a decision. People are looking to, it's like with and not that employees and children are the same, but there are some similarities there, right? When you're a parent and when you're a leader, in that there's an expectation. And so your children expect you to guide and direct and provide them with that. And it's not much different when you're working with your employees. They're looking to you to make a decision. And if they're coming to you, it's probably because they need you to make a decision or to help them through that, because we're adults. We can solve most things. We can figure stuff out. So if I'm coming to you, I must really need you to help me with this. So if I then do this whole kind of consensus approach, like let's see what everybody thinks and then we'll make some group decision, then that's like making no decision. Somebody has to make the decision. Somebody has to make the call, and then somebody has to own it as well, right? So I've always had accountability when we've made a mistake. If I've made the decision, it doesn't matter whose idea it was. I was the leader. I'm the one who said we were going to go forward with it. I own the accountability for that as well. And so, that again, it's the good and the bad that comes with being in a leadership role, right? You take the accountability that comes with that decision making authority as well. So
Yes. And I'm going to say it again. You are also being clear and open and transparent in this moment, and not
yes.
everybody will like that.
They will not. That is very true. Not everybody likes that type of approach. Me personally, I don't appreciate it as much in my personal life. That's a good word. It's always funny, the separation. Maybe in my personal life, I'd like you to not be so transparent and honest with me. But in my professional career, I've always appreciated leaders who did that. And I think that there's a real value in doing that. Even when I worked for companies where we were going through major changes or transitions, or people's jobs were being impacted or the company was being impacted, I always appreciated the leaders who could share everything they could with you. And there are some things that they can't, but what they would say then is, I'm going to share with you everything I can. I can't tell you about this, and this because of whatever the reason was. But I'll tell you what, those are the companies that I had the best experience with, and that I had the greatest amount of loyalty towards as well, because there was a trust and an accountability and a transparency in all of that. And I just think that's so important. And I really feel like that's lacking in corporate America today. Leadership, we all understand decisions have to be made at the top, and we don't all get to that whole consensus idea behind it. But what you do owe me is transparent, honest communication, because you're impacting whether it's my life or my job or my day to day, whatever it is. And so you do owe that to me, to have that and treat me like an adult. I'll deal with it. If I don't like it, I might leave, and that's my choice to do so. But I think that you owe that to the people who work for these companies. They give a lot to you, and in return, you owe that much back to them, I think.
I agree with you. And at the same time, I also appreciate even even while we are in the year 2026, that women haven't had a proper voice for too
Oh,
long, right?
yes.
Where we are now at the stage where some women leaders feel more comfortable really expressing their voice, having
Yes.
equal space at the table. We're nowhere near there yet. And I think
No.
that's an additional nuance that needs to be considered as well. That there are
Yes.
plenty of women leaders who may still hold back and conform and
Yes.
hesitate to be quite as open and transparent, in particular with peers, seniors to them, for example, to challenge what needs to be challenged.
Yes. I think that's such a good point. And I even hear it, even to your point, it's 2026, and I still hear this today. Like, that was around some male colleagues, and they made a comment about a female leader, like, oh, well, she has her entourage with her hair and makeup and everything. And I thought, you would never, ever say that about a male leader. And I thought, and it's just because she made them uncomfortable in her approach. I expect my leader to be well put together. So, I don't care if she has a custom suit, and I don't care if she has hair and makeup too, so that's what she is out there. She's representing us. She's representing the company. And I thought, we're in 2026, and that's the kind of talk. Like, if you want to say she's a terrible communicator, or, I don't think that she expresses herself very well, that's fine. But I feel like we still attack a woman's looks. We attack her, her personality, from a leadership perspective. And I think that also why a lot of women still, to your point, have a tendency to hold back, that fear of being judged. It's easy to say, don't care. It's a lot harder to not care, about what's being said about you or how you're being approached. It's definitely a balance and all of that. But I agree with you. We've come a long way, so I want to give credit where credit is due. But man, do we have a long way to go.
Yes. So let's contribute to that way and to make a few
Yes.
changes there as well. Um, so if you were to meet a younger woman entering the workforce or stepping into her first manager role, what would be one piece of advice that you would share with her?
What I would share with her is, I would say, don't change who you are. You got here because of who you are. So don't feel like now suddenly you have to be someone different to step into that role. Take the opportunity, learn the lessons, but at your core, stay true to yourself and what your belief system is. And so if you're an empathetic leader and you have a really good relationship with the people around you, maintain that. Don't stop doing that because someone tells you that now suddenly you can't have a relationship with your team, or you can't be personal, or don't do that. Really stay true to who you are, because you will grow in your career, you will find your path, and you will be much happier if you don't find yourself conforming to what everybody else is telling you. Stay true to yourself and find good mentors and advisors. I think that's something I wish there would have been more of when I was coming up. Women, when I was coming up, it was definitely a different time. And so you didn't have as much of that. So a lot of my mentors and advisors were still men. There are so many amazing women out there today. Find those mentors and advisors and work with them, learn from them. Not that there aren't amazing male advisors out there, there
Yeah.
are, but I think for young women coming up, find those really good role models in women leaders who are kind of like what you want to see, what you see in yourself, or maybe where you want to see yourself, and take advantage of developing those relationships.
I love that. Oh, Linda, there's so much more we could unpack here. But one final question for you is, if people wanted to get in touch with you to be a guest on your show, to learn from you, to deepen that conversation, how could they do that?
Well, you can always find me on LinkedIn, so you can catch me out there. I also have my own podcast called the Her Resources Podcast. We're on all of the major streaming services out there as well. So wherever you like to listen to a podcast, if you like YouTube, we're out on YouTube as well. And we have our website as well, the Her Resources Podcast. So if you're interested in being on the show, being a guest, certainly you can reach out to us through the website, or you can always DM me on LinkedIn. So, but Kathleen, it's so good to see you, and I can't wait to meet you in person because, like I said, it's going to feel like just seeing an old friend. So, thank you so much for having me on the show. I've had so much fun.
And here's the expert, the pro, the podcasting pro that comes through. Almost like you closing this session for me, which is wonderful. I'm happy to let go. It's been an absolute pleasure, Linda, to have you on the Legendary Leaders podcast. And I truly believe you are a legendary leader. And I am so delighted that you shared with me that you are doing more solo episodes, because I have the feeling you have a ton to share and to give, and to inspire the listeners with, and so therefore I can't wait to listen to your solo episodes as well.
Thank you.
We will be sharing the link to the podcast obviously as well in the show notes, so tune in. I've been a guest, by the way, so tune into that episode as well,
Yes,
please. But
absolutely.
I don't think this was the last time we spoke at all.
I hope not.
Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being the person you are, this beautifully introvert. And it's been a real pleasure reconnecting with you.
You as well, Kathleen. Thank you so much.
And for all of you out there, as always, I'd love to know, what is one thing you have been taking away from this conversation? It might not have all been new to you, but I'm pretty sure you had some light bulb moments of, I should be doing more of that, like networking, connecting again with your mentor, speaking up when you think you should be speaking up, and yet the inner voice tells you, nah, what if? So, what's been one thing? Let us know. We are curious for you. Hope you enjoyed this episode. I can't wait to speak to you again very soon. Take good care, everybody. Bye bye.